Welcome to Real People, Real Stories podcast. I'm Rena, your host, and today I'm presenting you another real-life story. My guest is Chris Natzke. Chris began martial arts at the age of 10 and discovered a passion that would shape his life. After a collegiate football career and a decade in corporate sales, he turned fully to martial arts. Over more than 4 decades, he has achieved the rank of 8th-degree black belt, became a master instructor, and in 1999 was crowned the United States National Taekwondo Champion. In this episode, we talk about following your passion, discipline, leadership, and the lesson martial arts can teach both on and off the mat. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Reina. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine. First of all, thanks for joining and thank you for willing to share your story with us.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
As you understand, I have a lot of questions, but let's start with the very first one. I know there's a story behind how you went into the martial arts, so can you take us back to your early years and share what drew you to martial arts?
Absolutely. Well, I started my martial art training back in 1973. I was a short little chubby kid, and I was enamored with a TV show that was on in the United States at that time called Kung Fu. It was a story about a Shaolin monk named Kwai Chang Caine who was walking across the western United States desert in the 1800s, and he would go in these little towns and meet up with the bad guys, and he'd beat them up using his kung fu. And as a 10-year-old, it was the coolest thing I ever saw on the planet. So I literally begged my mom to let me go to my first class, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. I felt like I was totally taken over, and I felt like I came home. And about 3 years after that, I'd meet a man that would change my life forever. His name is Grandmaster J.K. Lee. And Grandmaster Lee, I still consider him to be my teacher. And when I first met him, when I was training with him for one of the first times, I was seated in the back of the room and I had my legs spread wide. I was stretching out, getting ready for the class that day. And he walked onto the mat and he had this amazing power and this amazing presence. And he began surveying all of the students on the mat. And pretty soon I realized he was looking directly at me. And before I could move a muscle, he'd come down and sat down in front of me. And he put his right foot on the inside of one leg, his left foot on the inside of the other. He grabbed the ends of my belt and with one push-pull motion, split me out to 180 degrees. So I always like to joke, I learned 2 things from that experience. Number 1 is anyone can do the splits one time. But the second thing is he looked me in the eyes and he said to me in his broken English, he said, "I will make you a champion. I will make you a champion." Now at 13 years old, all I could think about was medals and trophies in the Olympics. But I learned later on that what he really meant was becoming a champion in life. And that was really the catalyst for me to say, this martial arts is something that I want to do for the rest of my life and also use it as a vehicle to help shape, grow, support, and empower others.
That is an amazing story. Hanging on your words about the trophies and Olympic sports, have you participated?
Well, I'm not in the Olympics, but my national championship in 1999 was in Olympic-style Taekwondo. So the style of Taekwondo that's in the Olympics to this day is what I won my national Taekwondo championship in 1999.
I think we're jumping ahead, but I think it's a very interesting topic by itself. It was a question for a little bit further away, but let's focus on this. So in 1999, you became the United States National Taekwondo Champion. So I just want to understand it's a pretty high title and not everyone can achieve it. Why you did not go to the Olympics or it was not on your plate?
Yeah, great question. So there are several reasons around that. The main reason is this, an Olympic style athlete generally is in their peak in their 20s, their early to mid 20s. The national championship that I won was for an age division of 33 to 40 years old. And so I still was a national champion in that division for heavyweight sparring, but And I'd also, at that time, had a family and also a full business to run with close to 500 martial arts students. So it wasn't something I could devote my entire time to doing. And it was also the title and the division in which I won.
Okay, I see. Well, but you got the United States National Taekwondo Championship. That's a big achievement. Let's circle back to your childhood.
Sure.
You did martial arts and then you played collegiate football. How did that transition happen?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, because sometimes you would think you would just be devoted to one sport or the other. And quite honestly, I think that if I would have had an option, if it would have been available to compete collegiately in Taekwondo, and I could have gotten a scholarship to do it, I probably would have gone that route. But at that time, those opportunities were not available. And I was very blessed to be an all-star football player, all-state football player when I was growing up and earn a scholarship to play football at Northwestern University. And I always often will say that I was a good athlete, but what made me really good was my martial art training. Because of the discipline, my ability to concentrate, to move, make quick decisions, the control of my body, etc. And I was also a good student. So Northwestern University, which is not only a Division I, which is the highest level of football in the United States, but also a prestigious university I was accepted to. So it was a wonderful opportunity for me to do that. I don't think I would have been able to succeed, though, as well in football had it not been for my martial art training.
That's a really good point. Just to understand, do some universities offer scholarship for martial arts?
Today they may, and I'm not really sure because I'm kind of out of that world. But at the time, that was non-existent. When I graduated high school in 1981, many people in the United States were even unfamiliar with what Taekwondo was, right? And in fact, martial arts, even in its grandest scale, didn't really come into prominence in the United States until right around that time when the Karate Kid movies came out in the United States. And so that's when all of the kids started going to martial arts studios. But I was 8-9 years before that time. And so at that time, I know there were no martial arts scholarships. And if there are, it's probably not many schools in the United States to my knowledge. But football, basketball, baseball, those, general American sports do offer scholarships. So I was very blessed to get an athletic scholarship. Also, students can receive academic scholarships as well. And I was very blessed. The university that I went to was also very prestigious in terms of their academics.
That's great. And after you graduated, did you stop to play football and went back to martial arts, or you went to your corporate sales job?
Well, actually both. So after my football career was over and I knew that I did not want to play any longer, I really delved into my martial arts heavily again. And so during the time of those 4 years of playing collegiate football, during the season, I wasn't able to train in martial arts, but I certainly did in the off seasons. And then after I left college, after I graduated college, then I started my corporate career, but I was simultaneously training in martial arts. I wasn't doing it professionally. I was teaching at, certain schools around the Chicago area and training, but I was not doing martial arts professionally until I left the corporate world in 1995.
Okay, let me ask this. You mentioned that your martial arts training helped you to play football, to become a good player. So my question is, you played football for 4 years, let's say so, in the college. And when you went back to martial arts, did those 4 years in football help you to improve your performance in martial arts?
Excellent question. And I would say yes. One of the things that playing American style football will provide you is, number one, you have to work a lot on your body from a strength and agility standpoint. So lifting weights, doing explosive movements like plyometrics and sprinting and things to be in football shape. And a lot of those carried over into my martial arts career. I was also very intentional about maintaining my flexibility in martial arts while I was playing football. So even though I was squatting 500 pounds with my legs, I could still do the full and complete splits. So what it added was this ability to gain explosion and strength in my martial art training. And also, quite honestly, when you play American style football, there's a lot of contact. So it was easy for me to be in a position where I could have heavy contact in martial arts and not be impacted negatively by that because I was used to that type of contact in football. So I would say if I look at my career in doing those simultaneously, one, the martial arts helped the football and football helped my martial arts.
Amazing. Basically, you have extended your experience in football and martial and have mixed all together and achieved great results.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I would think so. And I think that's part of our lives, right? Is that all of our experiences that we have, hopefully, regardless of whether it's a positive or negative experience, helps form us in our present moment and help us to move forward in the future based on the experiences that we've had.
That's true. That's very true. Well, let's get back to corporate sales. Also, question, how did you choose it? Because you did martial arts, Taekwondo, you played football. How come you went into business in the corporate world and into the sales? Like they're not interconnected.
Sure, 100%. Well, there's actually a really fun story with this. And I think that when I was getting ready to graduate college, and I would have been approximately 22, 23 years old, I guess. Yeah, 22 years old. I don't think I was ready at that time to open up my own business and teach martial arts professionally. I also got married between my junior and senior year of college, and we were blessed 3 months after we were married to find out that we were going to be having a son right around the time of my college graduation. So there was some urgency in terms of me finding employment. Now, I love telling this story because it's a story that sometimes I shake my head at, to just like I was so fortunate to have it happen this way. So it was the last week of my college football experience, and I was at practice on a Tuesday, and I played a defensive linebacker position, so defensive side of the ball, and the offensive lineman coach, who I knew and I had a casual relationship with, but I never played for, came up to me on a Tuesday and asked me what I was doing the following week on a Tuesday. And I said, well, coach, I have no plans. I definitely won't be at football practice because our season will be over. He said, well, Procter & Gamble, the Procter & Gamble distributing company, would like to speak with you. Well, I found out later on that what Procter & Gamble would do, and P&G, Procter & Gamble, is the number one consumer products company in the United States. They have some of the top brands that you have in the United States, some that are international brands like Head & Shoulders and Tide and Crest toothpaste and things like that. So what they would do is they would come to universities, one of them being Northwestern, and they would go to the athletic offices and the fraternities and the sororities to ask who their top people were. And so I was blessed enough to be, designated as one of those people that they should speak to. So that following Tuesday, I went to my interview. I had not even developed a resume yet. I just went and met with my first person. And at the end of the interview, he said to me, I'd like you to meet my boss tomorrow. Are you available? And I said, sure. So I went for my second interview on a Wednesday. And at the end of the interview, he said to me, I'd like you to meet my boss. Can you come back tomorrow? I said, yes, I would. So then I met the third person on a Thursday. And at the end of that interview, he said, we would like to bring you to Cincinnati, to our corporate headquarters, in about 2-3 weeks for you to tour the facility. And so I was having the conversation in mid-November. And so I went about 3 weeks later and visited Cincinnati. And at the end of that visit, they brought me into a room and said, we'd like to offer you a position. So without even putting my resume out, without doing any type of proactive activity to get employment, they came to me. I was recommended. I had 3 interviews, went on a trip, and I had a corporate job. So it was just such a blessing to have that happen in my life, and ended up happening that my son was born on May 30th. I graduated college on the 15th of June and started with Procter & Gamble on the 24th of June. So it all worked out in perfect timing.
That is amazing story. Wow, really worth telling. And I bet your wife was very happy for you to land this job.
Yes, it was nice to be able to be employed, that's for sure. And, it was, I mean, again, I look back at it in retrospect. I was just so blessed. The 10 years that I spent with Procter and Gamble were just fantastic. I worked not only for, but with amazing people. I got an amazing business education. And had it not been for me really wanting to follow my dream and my passion in teaching martial arts full time, I probably would have stayed with them, because I really had nothing but great things from that experience. But I knew that that wasn't exactly where my heart was. I needed to, my heart was in teaching martial arts.
So when did you decide to leave, or what?
Yeah, great question. So it's a little multifaceted. My former wife, who I was married to then, I'm very blessed that she was in my life, and she and I had actually been together since we were in high school. And she absolutely knew that one day my dream was to own a martial arts studio. And so when we moved to Denver is a beautiful place to live. And she came to me one day and she said, I know that you're not totally happy at Procter and Gamble. I know that this dream of having a martial arts school is something that you really want to have. And we just moved here to Denver in the last, I think had been there for 2 years. And she said, we love it here. It's a great place for us to raise our boys. I'll tell you what, I don't want you to not have fulfilled your dream. Why don't you go for it? And why don't you move to open up your school? And quite honestly, I think at that time in my life, I was very scared about leaving this wonderful, prestigious job with great benefits and great salary. And had it not been for her and her encouragement, I probably wouldn't have made the leap to do it. But what was also happening during that time is there were a lot of realignments and sales restructures that were happening, not only in companies, not only at Procter and Gamble, but in companies around the United States. And so there was a lot of changes going on in sales structures. And I just felt I had a vision. In fact, you asked what the moment was. Because of all those sales restructures that were happening, a lot of people were taking early retirements. And I went to a sales meeting in San Francisco, California, where my boss's boss was retiring. He took a retirement package. And during his retirement party that we were all attending, everyone was telling stories about him, and very good-natured stories, and he was very highly regarded. But all the stories they were telling about him were about the sales he made of shampoo and deodorant and laundry detergent. And I thought, well, these are all neat stories, but they're not really stories about how he impacted lives. And at that moment, I said, I was on the plane ride home. I visioned myself out 20, 30 years ahead and thinking, man, if I was at my retirement party, is that what I would want people to say? Or I would want them to say, wow, he really made an impact on this many lives. And that's what was a real turning point for me to say, I don't think I can do it working in corporate America, but I know I can do it running my martial arts studio.
Wow, that is another amazing story from your side. Well, I must say it's very deep thought, and indeed not everyone can change their life and do the things they like or wish to do. So that first of all, you had support of your ex-wife, that she gave you idea like, let's do now. And secondly, you went to this retirement party, and yeah, amazing. Let's go back to your martial arts, because I know you also earned 8th-degree black belt, 8th level, and I made a research there, overall 10 levels from the lowest one to the highest 10. So you have the 8, so it's pretty high. What did it take in terms of training and mindset to reach such a high level? And also, out of curiosity, how many years it took you?
Yeah. So, yeah, clearly, and I think that this number is quite accurate. I think that being an 8th degree black belt puts me in the top 1% of all martial art practitioners in the world. And I say that quite humbly. I'm just saying, many people start or train in martial arts, but don't do it for their entire life. For me, it was something that became a life passion and became, although it might sound like a cliche, it's just part of who I am now. It's a lifestyle. For me, martial arts is not just a physical activity. It becomes a metaphor for how I live my life. And in terms of keeping not only with a healthy body, but a healthy mind and a healthy spirit. And I believe personally that, and I might be a little biased with this, but my personal belief is that if everyone had the opportunity at one time in their life to go through a martial art program and earn a black belt, the world would be a much different place. Because in general, not all, but in general, people who have attained a black belt are able to learn how to move through challenge, learn how to find empowerment within themselves, and also learn how to temper themselves and use self-control and look at martial arts as a vehicle for making the world a better place versus using martial arts in a destructive way. So in order to attain a rank of 8th degree black belt, I always like to explain it this way. And actually in styles of karate and is 10th degree black belt in Taekwondo, which is my martial art, there are basically 9 degrees of black belt. And the way that I've often had my mentors explain this to me is the first 3 degrees of black belt, first, second, and third degree, those are the fighters. They're the competitors. They're the students, if you will. The 4th through the 6th degree black belts are the instructors. They're the teachers. And the 7th to the 9th degree black belts, we become the philosophers, right? So as our bodies age and maybe we're not able to kick as high as we used to or perform like we could before, we have a wisdom that has developed inside of us. And I always believe that if we learn how to destruct and how to do harm, we also need to balance that out and learn how to heal. And so what I've been fortunate enough to do is use martial arts as a metaphor for my life, use that in my speaking and coaching so that hopefully I'm able to help people empower themselves and heal themselves through that message.
Right. I want to clarify a few things. So basically the 7th through 9th degree, is it honorary or you need to do some training to do some exam?
Yes. Yes. So great question. So my 7th degree black belt test was a physical test. So I was on stage by myself for over an hour and a half doing a cumulative of all of the training that I've done throughout the years. I think in addition to Taekwondo, I had 6 to 8 different martial arts that I performed. In addition to Taekwondo, I did Muay Thai kickboxing, the Superfoot system of kickboxing, Kali and Eskrima. I did bow staff. I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I did the Korean martial art of Hapkido. So that was a physical test. My 8th degree black belt was more of a time and tenure in terms of honorary rank. But I have also, taught tens of thousands of students. I help run a national organization. And I've also promoted over 2,000 students to date to the rank of black belt and beyond.
Amazing. Follow-up questions. Now, you're running school, you're training people. Do you still practice Taekwondo or other types of martial arts?
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Wow.
At 3 or 3:30 o'clock this afternoon, I'll be doing my weekly Tuesday kicking workout. So yes, I'm still very active, as much as my body will allow me to be, but I still train all the time.
Wow, I'm really impressed. Before we finish, what's the one thing you'd like listeners to take away from today's conversation?
Well, there's several things, I guess, is that my message, and it's probably because it was so integral to my own development, is that martial arts, again, is a metaphor for life. And we have a saying in martial arts is that a champion doesn't need to be told what to do. They just need to be reminded. And so I truly believe that each and every one of us has a champion quality within ourselves, and that sometimes we can lose track of that. Each one of us has unique talents and skills. We have our own gifts that we have to give to the world. And sometimes we can get a little off track with that. And oftentimes that begins with our own mindset. about how we view things, how we look at our challenges that we've had in our lives, and how we can reframe those in order to actually be gifts so that we can move forward in our lives. And so I'd encourage all of your listeners is to just reflect on their own lives. And what are the gifts and talents that they have to give? Because I really believe that we as human beings, regardless of whether it's in martial arts or just in another discipline, when we're able to tap into that and we're able to share those gifts in the world to make it a better place and to help others grow and evolve, that is what life is all about. And we have another saying in martial arts is that a black belt is a white belt that never quit. And so many of my students, for instance, at the beginning were not the most talented. And some of the students that had the greatest difficulties in their early martial art training continued to persist. And as a result of that, became some of my top students, black belts, and martial art teachers themselves. So my other message would be to everyone is when you have those difficult times, stay with it, stay the course, because I can guarantee you if you can move through those, you'll not only grow as a person, but you'll probably look back at those times in your life and be the most happy and grateful for those times because they helped forge who you were able to become.
Thank you, Chris. And on those wisdom words, we're ending the episode. Thanks for listening to Real People, Real Stories podcast. Join us next time for another inspiring story.